they're on Tinder and they're uploading those hideous videos to TikTok. That dopamine feed that comes from a guy liking it, hitting them up on their DMs, that to them is building relationships. Because they're being told OnlyFans will bring them all the male attention they need. It's a monetization of the body.
Welcome once again, folks. I hope you're all doing well. As you can see, I've got a good friend, Hanna Jade, back on the show. How are you doing, Hanna?
I'm very well, Jimothy. How have you been keeping?
Not too bad, not too bad. Sort of getting myself prepared for the winter season and whatever that's going to bring for us down here in New South Wales.
Oh, we might get the Biden winter of, death. Winter of unseasonable death. So fingers crossed it turns out like the US did.
Well, exactly right. Just out of interest, we've had a spate of sore throats and coughing, and I've noticed before that, like a week and a half ago, the old chemtrail clouds. Have you guys got it over in Queensland?
What are you doing looking up, Jimothy? Don't you know you should have been doing that?
I know, I shouldn't be doing that.
Yes, very unseasonable weather, very cold. And you can usually see it early in the morning at around that 8-9 o'clock mark. And then the next day we've got just horrendous, misty, crappy weather where you don't want to go outside and get your vitamin D.
So clearly they're creating the sickness. They're obviously chemtrailing, depositing whatever else, creating sickness, which then gives us the plausible deniability for the second booster. Is that right?
Exactly. And the reason to go out and buy your tests. Jeez. So you can be cleared for work.
Excellent. Well, look, funny enough, that wasn't the reason why I brought Hanna on. Okay. Look, I've had a season of looking at the infiltration of the New World Order on family and relationships. And what I did over the last few episodes is essentially to look at what's happening now in general, what the state of play is, and to show that it's not by accident, that it actually is by design. Now, I actually believe that we are moving into a sort of fourth industrial revolution whereby technology and this technocratic system we're being sort of cajoled into is really going to push us more into kind of the dream transhumanist agenda that the New World Order has been sort of shouting and screaming about. And this will have dire consequences. But you see, we didn't get here by accident, or we didn't get here by chance. A few weeks ago, I had a brief chat with Hanna over possibly what influences there may have been in the past. Was there anything, in the past in terms of organizations, societies, or what have you else that had an agenda, had an anti-family agenda? And believe it or not, Hanna looked at me like, are you sure you didn't know this? Sort of look. So she's going to help us to unpack this in earnest. But as per usual, before we do that, we're going to have a quick look at the news from the BBC. So this is the scandal now. We've got this East versus West scandal with the media over the events that took place allegedly in Bucha, or is it Busha? I'm sure my Ukrainian subscribers will help me out with the pronunciation there. But essentially what they're saying is that the atrocities that happened were not in a vacuum, and that there are other towns and villages where atrocities have taken place. Now, naturally, the Russians have said, no, this isn't true, and that in actual fact, the pictures that we've seen of the victims were staged. This is going to go backwards and forwards now. So once again, from the BBC, you've got the Pope moving in on it. And, he always seems to be there to back the New World Order agenda, whether it's to do with, shutting down churches because of a pandemic, or in this case, coming out to condemn the Bucha massacre. So the title is Pope Condemns Bucha Massacre and Kisses the Ukrainian Flag. And in detail, Pope Francis condemned the massacre of Bucha and kissed the Ukrainian flag. That was sent to him from the town during his weekly audience at the Vatican's auditorium. And so you have the pictures here. In more detail again, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky says Russia is using hunger as a weapon in its attempt to win territory. So once again, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky says Russia is using hunger as a weapon in its attempt to win territory. Ukraine is one of the world's biggest producers in agriculture and food, and Zelensky said Russia's actions would lead to a shortage of food and heightening costs for millions of hungry people across the globe. So right here, we know that the WEF have been heralding food shortages, fuel shortages, and also the Great Reset. But of course, as far as the masses were concerned, they needed a plausible deniability. They needed the means by which they could blame these shortages and this sudden reset on anything other than a concerted effort or a hideous plan by the elite. This war, or alleged war, has now given them the plausible deniability. So once again, they believe the narrative is that Russia's actions will lead to food shortages and heightening costs. And many of you have seen in your local supermarkets all over the world increase in food prices. So there you have it. Moving on from there to look at the topic of the day. It's a known fact now that most people, in terms of finding new partners, are going towards the dating apps simply because, the opportunities to meet people face to face now are pretty much non-existent now. And so this isn't by accident, however. I believe this is part of a long-standing process to dismantle the family. And they've been doing it really as part of a gamification and modification of behavior and changing many aspects of our society so that we would find it easier to become acclimatized to the changes that we're seeing. So here in this article, this is an article that's quite a few years old actually, but it's from Thinking Marketing. And the heading here is Pushing the Envelope. And it says here, since recently, gamification has been disrupting and transforming some of the fundamental pillars of society: banking, health and wellness, science, transportation, education, and environment / the food chain.
If by adding play to parts of our lives, we collectively became a little more motivated and a little more happy, games have the power to achieve this. Games hack your brain. They activate your limbic system and release feel-good hormones. That's what makes games so popular, so engaging, and so powerful. The mechanics used in game design are not limited to cards, boards, and video games. They're all around you. Game mechanics are already affecting your life. Gamification is about using these mechanics to design an experience to engage users to solve real-world problems. We expect to be engaged. We expect to have experiences designed and tailored for us. And we want to be part of something bigger than ourselves that connects us meaningfully with each other and with a purpose. The 4 orders of gamification, my framework to better understand, implement, and evaluate gamification experiences. There are 4 orders, and they go up in complexity based on the number of people playing and interacting, the types of behaviours being incentivized, the duration of time the experience goes for, and how much integration there is with everyday life.
It's this gamification, folks, that was the if you like, the foundation behind the Chinese social credit system, which uses a series of credits for certain types of behavior and obviously loss of points for other types of behavior.
Apparently, China has gamified being an obedient citizen. Going under the innocuous name of Sesame Credit, China has created a score for how good a citizen you are. It's jointly run by Tencent, yes, that Tencent, the one that owns Riot Games and has a significant share in Epic and Activision Blizzard, and also the ascendant Chinese competitor to Amazon, Alibaba. So the owners of China's largest social networks have partnered with the government to create something akin to the US credit score. But instead of measuring how regularly you pay your bills, it measures how obediently you follow the party line. They dredge data from your social network, so if you post pictures of Tiananmen Square or share a link about the recent stock market collapse, your Sesame credit score goes down. Share a link from the state-sponsored news agency about how good the economy's doing, and your score goes up. If you're making purchases the state deems valuable, like work shoes or local agricultural products, your score goes up. If you import anime from Japan, though, down the score goes. And this score has real-world consequences, and having a high score gives you special benefits, like making it easier to get the paperwork you need to travel, or making it easier to get a loan. Now, currently, there are no consequences for having a low score, but there's been talk about implementing penalties once the system becomes mandatory in 2020. Penalties like slower internet speeds for low-scoring citizens, or even restricting the jobs that a low-scoring person's allowed to hold. But there's one more layer to Sesame Credit, and here's where this goes from being repulsive to downright insidious. Because this is all part of a social network, it also scans your friends. So you will lose points for having friends with low obedience scores. And it tells you this. At any point, anybody can check anyone else's score. And when you check your own score, Sesame Credit provides a handy map of your friends to show you who's dragging your score down.
And lo and behold, I actually believe it's gamification that was behind some of the changes and loss of rights and liberties that we've seen during the supposed pandemic. The system via artificial intelligence has really been gamified. And see, we're not fighting rules and regulations. We're actually fighting against an AI gamification system. Using the tried and tested problem reaction solution is getting us to conform and comply with wholesale changes that we wouldn't have done so already. And with the sheer amount of data that's now accessible through social media and online applications that sort of consume vast amounts of our information, they're able to do all the analysis to be able to forecast our behavior. So then you plug that into a gamification system, you now have what I believe is a beast system powered by AI on quantum platforms that really is moving us towards this transhumanist agenda. But it's at that point that I'm going to bring in Hanna. So Hanna, bit of a long-winded introduction, but I thought it was necessary. You have been aware of the gamification of our society, and you've seen the changes in the way it's related to family, haven't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You see it in family structures. You see it in the abolition of the term nuclear family, like you've mentioned before, the dating apps, and the far lefties, the queer people that they celebrate being different, but very hard to develop relationships with. So we're not seeing the generation of new families that's going to bring our culture forward and keep society going. So I want to hit you with a question straight up though, Jimothy.
Sure.
Can you define family?
Well, I suppose I would define family in the spiritual form, as in man and a husband and wife, and the children all coming together as per our Creator's objectives for humanity. That's how I would describe it.
Yeah, and how do you think your sons would describe it from their viewpoint?
That's a really good question. Do you know, honestly, I dread to ask. I would dread to ask, because that's been one of my nightmares. Is will they even see family as a viable option?
Well, the gamification aspect comes in language. If you can't define it, does it exist? If we don't have a socially, culturally acceptable definition of family, does it exist? You know, we Christians see family as this dynamic nuclear family with a man, a woman, and the ability to naturally procreate. But the meaning of the word has expanded so much that there is no culturally non-religious way to define what family is. So once you lose meaning for something, it's starting to cease to exist.
Well, also, I mean, as you were talking there, it suddenly occurred to me also that you've got this situation now where I know a lot of men today are thinking that it's actually financially not viable for them to get into a marriage, simply because if they get divorced, they're likely to lose everything. And it's the incentives for women to leave marriages are too attractive, if you like. Similarly, women believing now that they need the independence, and they don't want to be tied down to the traditional structures of a marriage. They don't see that as being edifying in any way, shape, or form. You've also then got marriages seem to be, in its traditional form, is anti-LGBTQ and so on and so forth. You've then got the different gender types and different gender roles. But also you've got this, I don't know whether you've seen the previous episodes, where you've got relationships now are being pushed that are far more fluid.
Polyamory. Mm-hmm.
Polyamory. You've also got people are far happier to get into sexual relationships, where it's an open door sort of policy. So everything's there for a total implosion. And then when you add to that the fact that the means by which you can even engage in the opposite sex in the traditional way now, those means are not there anymore. Mm-hmm. And the ability to communicate with people, that seems to be getting far more difficult. How did we get here, Hanna? That's the question. How did we get here?
I like that you brought up the women's rights and the independence. And I believe a big portion of this in the Western civilization started with the women's movement, the feminist movement. It started off seemingly benign. We wanted equal rights to men in the workplace, in voting, in many aspects. But in doing so, we have generated and cultivated a generation of women who don't know what it means to be a woman. And it really comes down to language. And I cannot stress this enough. And for anyone that has read 1984, you know the importance of INGSOC, reducing the language and reducing meaning so that you can't communicate effectively. Like you said, with dating apps, emojis, being able to hold conversations, the whole landscape of nuance and descriptive language is so condensed these days that you can't build expression, you can't communicate feelings and that type of thing. And the language side of it, when you say, okay, we had trouble describing family, now describe woman. We saw it over with the judge in the US. They can no longer describe woman. So you've got these women who have been told in the 60s that, yes, women's empowerment, and in the 70s, it's, the androgyny of the 80s. And then we had the 90s was the girl power with the Spice Girls. And,
right.
And we've morphed into this society of, well, if the man leaves, I'll be fine. Plus I get alimony. So it's kind of bred a perfect Marxist society, because the abolition of family is one of the most paramount things in the Communist Manifesto, is the abolition of private property, the abolition of family. And by severing family ties and ties to your identity and your role in society, all of these free-floating women rely on the state. And they're not having those traditional roles. So that's where Big Daddy Centrelink with his single parent income comes in and saves them.
Well, I mean, it's interesting you should say that, and I'm glad that you've gone down that route, because that literally carries on from the previous episode where I had Pastor Chad Wagler, and you can imagine what he would have had to say about, you know, these drastic changes to society. And just very quickly before I make my next point, you mentioned how even the removal of words to be able to describe emotions and whatever else, that's been taken out of the discourse. Well, I'll put it to you now. People are more comfortable with communicating via emojis, you know, than even to pick up the phone and have a conversation, or even to meet face to face. This is something that I've noticed, you know, creating the decline in our ability to form meaningful relationships. So it's interesting that you should pick up on that. So you believe that actually this is a concerted attack to reduce our ability to communicate and relate to each other?
Oh, 100%. And, you know, this is where COVID ties into it. You can only have one person over at your house. You can't go to your workplace. You need to work from home. It's a conditioning to getting people used to communicating via the tools that they provide us. You know, our smartphones, our laptops, our emojis, and this is why a big part of the resistance to it all is community. It's maintaining physical bonds and going outside and building proper relationships. And it's a very big, important part of my life is no matter how rubbish I feel, I turn up. I organise, can't do coffee because of mandates, but, you know, barbecues, and I have weekly walks and that type of thing where you're able to be your authentic self. Because when you're hidden behind a screen, not only do you have the propensity to be a troll, you also have the propensity to be someone that you're not.
Wow, okay. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. I think we've created enough of a context now, basically, with which this conversation can be set. Let's go back in time. So Hanna brought up the Marxist agenda, and I did manage to source this document here. So this is Marx, Engels, and the Abolition of the Family, right? Now, it was interesting to say that they mentioned here, by the mid to late 19th century, it was clear to advocates and opponents alike that many socialists shared a propensity to reject the institution of the family in favor of free love, if not in practice, at least as an ideal. So you can see there that at least the principles were at least talked about, okay? So it was a matter then of, as you say, the various institutions, of course, you know, with a plausible deniability of we want to, you know, emancipate and help women. But I'll let you take the ball from there.
Yeah, I might just introduce the book that I get a lot of this information from. It's called The Global Sexual Revolution, and the tagline is Destruction of Freedom in the Name of Freedom. And it's obviously heavily used, but it's a fantastic historical account of how we got here, the destruction of civil liberties and freedom of speech and freedom of religion at the expense of freedom of sexuality. So it is more important to have your sexual identity. You know, if I asked you, okay, Jimothy, define yourself, how would you explain Jimothy? Introduce yourself.
Well, a great-looking heterosexual black man, based on that. Well, you know, as well, I'll introduce myself as a heterosexual male.
Okay, and why is it important that you highlight your sexuality in your introduction?
That's a really good point, actually. Well, because there are so many other, you know, sexualities that have been introduced into the public domain, I suppose.
So if I introduce myself as, hi, I'm Hanna, I'm a Christian conservative mother, that's bang, bang, bang. That's 3 Marxist strikes, you know, Christian conservative mother. Right. My sexual identity, it shouldn't be the first question off someone's back.
You're right. You're right.
But we've got so many people who are so tied up in not only their sexual identity that defines who they are. I'm a queer libertarian, fur mama, you know, whatever. It's all about this labeling and this identity, and you cannot you can't have freedom of expression and say, look, I agree that, you know, you should be treated and respected well, but I don't agree with the way that you're living your life. You know, St. Augustine, the love the sinner, hate the sin. You can absolutely love and respect someone and not agree with the lifestyle that they're leading. But we have all of these young people who are so tied up in these identity politics because they are being told that your sexuality and your gender is the most important thing about you. So this stems from a very, very long line of sexual normalization,
Right.
and this whole push to normalize and destigmatize a range of things that a regular Christian would see as perversions.
Well, and let's not forget that the overall objective is stopping humans procreating. So if you can destroy the notion of heterosexual relationships, well, then you introduce others that can't procreate in the normal God-fearing way, in the way that God intended. So bingo.
Well, yeah, and I'll bring it back to Marxism for a little while. So cultural Marxism is about property. Is the proletariat don't have stuff or the things, any property that can induce capitalism. So humans are a capital property because we can produce something. And then you've got the bourgeoisie, which is able to generate income and generate energy out of the things that they own. So cultural Marxists see not the economic models, but the societal ones, see humans as having properties that are beneficial. And nobody is entitled to have properties that somebody else does not. So using, for example, ableism. Able-bodied people are benefiting from a society that prioritizes them for jobs, that they are able to drive, they are able to earn income, they are able to do things that the disadvantaged disabled people are not. And therefore, we must support the disabled so that they can live in a society where they are treated as equal. The same thing happens with childbirth. So as a heterosexual, cisgendered woman, I have a property that is able to generate capital, meaning children,
Right.
in a normative way that a homosexual couple cannot.
Right.
So instead of taking that away from me, they've got to bring everyone else up so that we have a society where it's not mother and father and natural conception. It is, well, we will support you in any way that we can so that you can have a child and that you can be considered normal. So it's a normalization of the properties of humanity. So it's across ableism, it's across sexuality, marriage. You know, I have a feeling that the reason the gay marriage thing was so contentious in Marxist dogma is, for me personally, if you had said to this homosexual couple, I will give you every single right that is part of being married, every civil liberty, every divorce law, every equal rights, everything, you will be entitled to that, but it will be called a civil union and not a marriage. That would not have worked. It would not have suited. It wasn't about the rights. It was about the fact that you have to abolish normal. You have to get rid of what is normal, because then it separates society based on normal and abnormal. So you have to include everybody in that definition of marriage. And that's why marriage is now so diluted. It was never about the rights. It was, you cannot separate a society and seem to have the normal and the abnormal, the abled and the disabled, the heterosexual biological children and the children of gay couples. So it's a very culturally Marxist fight that they are having to just completely wipe out what is considered normal, and that is the class war. Because you can't have classes, you can't have these separate identities, and that's why we're seeing such hideous clashes. They're pitting us against each other in the hope that we'll just go, you know what, we're all able-bodied, or you know, we can't speak out on religion because it's bigotry. You can't have that opinion anymore because everybody is equal. Do you see the attack on the normal?
Absolutely.
The normal generation of family. So it's been going a very long time, and I've got a bit of a timeline here if you're interested.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do. Absolutely.
So this is a very, very just succinct little list. It's not very comprehensive, but starting in 1961, we had the authorization of the birth control pill. So if anyone knows the history of Margaret Sanger and the birth control movement. In 1969, we had the repeal of the blasphemy law, and these were in Germany. This is the timeline from Germany, and then it rolls over to the Western world through the European Union and the UN. In 1969, we had the legalization of divorce. In 1969, we also had introduction of mandatory sex education in schools and the legalization of pornography. In 1973, the authorization of no-fault divorce. In 1976, the full legalization of homosexuality. In 1977, while abortions remain illegal, they are not subject to prosecution up to the 14th week. Abortion of disabled children possible all the way to the delivery date. 1994, by order of the Cabinet Chancellor, gender mainstreaming becomes the guiding principle of politics. So it's a political tool.
Right.
1995, civil unions for homosexuals. 1999, the prostitution recognised as a service and a professional qualifying for social insurance.
Yes.
In 2001, the decision of the Supreme Court, which enabled financial benefits for families of civil servants, must be granted to same-sex partners in a civil union. And 2001, stepchild adoption of same-sex partners in civil union are expanded to successive adoption. Since 2001, adoption of a biological child through same-sex partner is possible. Now, the adopted child of one partner can be adopted by the same-sex partner. So that's just a very brief timeline, but all of those are so heavily impactful on our society and how we got where we are.
Well, I mean, look, folks, just looking at even the first few changes, what you saw there, if you consider what the traditional model for marriage used to look like, which was having aspirations to become a wife and a mother, you know, would marry a man who showed clearly that he had the ability to look after a family, have children, and become valuable members of the society, which will then become, you know, the bedrock for a community and the country. Can you just read out the first 3 or 4 again, because they seem to be giving the license to, or look at relationships from the point of view of not having to be committed.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly tell you why it's important, because as sex goes, so goes the family, and as family goes, so goes society. So It starts at home with the changes in sexuality. You pit horny teenagers against their parents, and then the next generation it pushes into society. So first off, authorization of the birth control pill around the same time as the free love movement in the 60s.
You didn't have to wait to be in a relationship to have sex, essentially.
I think it also pinpointed sex as pleasure as opposed to sex for procreation. Sex was always about procreation, and take that away and you've suddenly got a generation of sex for pleasure.
Right.
So very important. Legalization of divorce, introduction of sex ed in schools, and legalization of pornography were through the 60s. I mean,
even the legalization of divorce, because what that then gave you was, hey, if things, look, we know relationships they're about the long-term ups and downs. You know, that is what a relationship is, you know. But now, with the with the changes in the divorce laws, you gave a reason to get out if it's getting difficult. So that in itself would have had a massive impact on the sustainability, the long-term sustainability of marriage. Why would you stay in a marriage if you can just...
Only that, exactly. Why would you tough out anything that's difficult to see if it gets better? Right. Why would you live through suicidal ideation with the plan that your mind will repair itself? Why would you quit your job instead of getting a COVID needle when it's just easier to get a COVID needle? You know, you've got a very simple, easy, like life is easy these days. We do have instances of terrible marriages, terrible. But as a general rule, some of the reasons I hear long-term couples breaking up, I think, really? You couldn't work on that?
Oh, absolutely. But let's not forget, of course, and I'll allow you to carry on with the other changes, and we'll break them down as well. But don't forget, of course, the media played its part. I've had episodes with people like Chris Shaw, where we showed how, you know, magazines like Cosmopolitan were paid money to write these editorial pieces to show what fantastic life these women were having, you know, free sex and free love as and when they want, without the responsibility or even the thought or the need to you know, to be responsible, to be wives or whatever else. I mean, why would you want to, this is even before Sex and the City. So why would you want to be wives, get into that when you can have the freedom? And they sold freedom for women, didn't they?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It was handed to us on silver platters of Cleo and Cosmo and Dolly and all of these things that, you know, train your man this way and, you know, do this to get that job you love. You know, it's all been spoon-fed to us in really, how to be a woman.
Exactly. So really, guys, this is early gamification, even before you had the technology. This is psychological gamification. And as Hanna said, they basically did it one generation after the other, because they knew that you can make wholesale changes over one generation, such that they would forget what the old world looked like and basically just carry on from there. You see?
Oh, and 100% that I know many people who don't believe history is important, to the point they don't believe their previous generation is important, their parents' stories, all of those types of things. They know we're moving towards the future, and progress for the sake of progress. What are we progressing towards? Well, where are we aiming for as a society? We don't have it. It's just, oh, we're going to work on equal rights for blacks this month, and then we're going to work for equal rights for queers, and then we've got, you know, it's progress for the sake of progress. But we have, you know, a huge majority of people on antidepressants. We have a huge amount of suicides. We have a huge amount of divorce. We have a lot of single parent children that are struggling. Is society better, or is it society is better for a few in that point in time, and then we move on to the next progress? We don't seem to have a goal as a society to progress to a chosen destination. We're just floating along.
Well, that's the way it seems to us, but to the guys who are sort of, you know, the custodians of this overall agenda, which is this transhumanist agenda, okay, going through the metaverse. Oh, no, we are following exactly according to plan. So let's hit the next lot of changes that occurred in that little list of yours.
So moving on from that, it very much became an indoctrination program through the schools and the universities. So starting off in places like the Frankfurt School, and moving their way into Harvard and all that kind of thing. It was a real big push on the push from feminism to gender ideology, you know, and moving into that androgynous and queer, and at the time transsexual, you know, that's a voodoo word now. You don't say transsexual, it's all transgender. So there's another manipulation of language that can trigger a lot of infighting even within the trans community. So it was all about removal of taboos and removal of the perversion and the normalization of a lot of different sexual natures. So, you know, Mardi Gras is a big cultural celebration of how far we've come. And now we celebrate furries, and we celebrate men dressed in leather as dogs. And all of this is, you know, we are so free. And we are free to be ourselves, and we are free to have sex however, with whoever, and with whatever we want. And I am not here to judge anyone's sexual proliferations at all. And I will not treat anyone any differently, but to be paraded in the streets in front of children, you know. So we've gone from the very traditional Christian view of sexuality where it stays in the bedroom, no one talks about it, you know, wives might talk about it over tea, to people. I saw one today, a TikToker was boasting about, she was on a treadmill at the gym saying how great it was to work out with I'm sorry for the profanity, but a butt plug in. Jeez. So that next time she hooks up on Tinder, she's all nice and ready. And I'm like, we are at a stage, it's too
it's actually just gone off the rails and that. Before we sort of look at how technology has even furthered the agenda. So, you know, clearly with all the incentives for the dismantling of family, you've also got now the various policies that have affected different groups. Because this is the other thing that I noticed when I started looking at this topic. Okay, believe it or not, within the Black community now, there is this huge divide where Black women now believe that the last thing they need is to be involved in a relationship with a Black man, because what they want, because Black men are failing. Okay, the figures actually don't show that, but what's happened is this: Black women are choosing to be they're choosing to be mothers before anything else.
I don't even know if women really want to be in a relationship. I can't say that for sure, because if we really did, then we would understand. I mean, we would be able to sacrifice something for it. I think we want validation, and if we don't have it from a man, we'll just go on social media and get it. So if we are validated, and that's what you're for, and I get it, then I don't need you. Maybe just for some sex. That dopamine fix, I get it through the attention that I can get by being fake and not even being myself. And then it's like, even with the surgeries, the photoshops, the filters, you like me this way, but that's not who I am. So maybe I'm even scared to even come out and show you who I am, because I've been living a lie. But do we want to? I'm going to have to say no.
So it's not uncommon to have 2-3 kids for different fathers, because, hey, you know, well, I wanted to have a kid and I didn't want to be tied down by a man. But obviously, when they get to 30 something, going into 40, suddenly, you know, the economic restrictions and difficulties suddenly force them into looking for a partner. And this is where social media, Instagram has then changed the landscape, because now they're looking for what some would term beta male. So the notion of an alpha male now, you know, this traditional male, no. The women don't want that. They want this beta male where they are, you know, pretty much someone that is on the same wavelength as them, you know, someone that doesn't have to be led by, doesn't challenge them or anything like that. Just that, I mean, what's your thought on that alone? And by the way, for all my Black subscribers who are looking in, I see I do realize, because look, I'm in Australia, there's not that many Black people here, but the same problems are being faced here with the same views. Okay, so just to let you know, this is a global issue, apart from if you're in China and India, but we'll talk about that later. So what's your view on that?
I'll step it away from the colour issue completely and just look at it. You use the word choice. You know, they're choosing to be a mother first, and is that choice? Do you think they actively thought through the process.
Well, I'll tell you what it is. They're just not thinking.
Or is it a conditioning?
Well, I think, do you know something? I would say it is conditioning, because if you go back to the policies and changes that have happened around the whole sexual revolution, teenagers and women in their 20s, they're just basically having as many partners as possible. I mean, it's not uncommon for a woman by the age of 25 to have 50 to 100 partners. It's not uncommon. So is that a choice?
And this is what we were saying before, you know, it's a generational MTV culture and Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion and all of this. This is what they are being portrayed as. This is what men want. This is what you should be. And this will get you everything you want in life. And so they go out and have the promiscuous sex, and they go out and they're on Tinder, and they're uploading those hideous videos to TikTok, because that dopamine feed that comes from a guy liking it and hitting them up on their DMs, that to them is building relationships. And women have always had the proclivity to think that they can use sex to make a man fall in love. So they go out and they have repeated sex. They're trying, like, you know, there's libs of TikTok, and there's so many examples of platforms highlighting that these women, they look so sexually independent and they're bragging, and then they're so upset that no one will have a relationship with them.
And as of COVID, I do porn and adult content, and I'm single because I don't know how to date now doing adult content.
Is it harder now because of what you do, you would say?
It's harder because, like, I don't know if guys just want to f me or if they want to date at this point. So it's difficult. I'm still trying to navigate it. I'm still trying to figure out what the dynamic is that I want when it comes to dating. So it's interesting, but I'm here. I'm still dating. It's hard to date because, like, I wake up to money in my bank account of people that want to watch me shower. They want to watch me eat breakfast from the moment I wake up. So I'm like, how do I date and turn around and look at someone like they're paying?
They're being told that OnlyFans will bring them all the male attention they need, but it's nothing fulfilling. So the same thing is happening at a societal level with these women who are being told that you need to be this for a man to be appreciative, and you need to do this to draw them in. And it's all based on lust and looks and sexual, you know, you're meeting their perversions, you're meeting their sexual needs, but you're not being an authentic person that they can actually build a relationship with. I personally don't know any men who started off just randomly hooking up with a girl and then realized he was in love. It started with conversation and doing things that they had interest in and being authentic from the get-go. So all of these women who, and very broad generalization, and it's hard coming from me because I've been married for so long, but from a psychological level, men see sex as eating a burger. You know, women see sex as this making love and having connections and building of endorphins and feelings, and men see it as, oh, that was a good burger. I feel like a hot dog now. And, you know, so it can be very damaging.
Well, funny enough, I would say you're close to the mark, but not close enough.
Right.
Okay, right. Yesterday's men would have seen it like that. And yesterday's women would have seen it as you describe. But 2022, no, the landscape is different.
Very.
Okay, so you can go through to the various platforms, and this is what's happening. So women have realized, wow, I can go on Instagram and I can get literally tens of hundreds, if not thousands of men who are into me. And you hit the nail on the head. Oh, they'll hit them up on the DMs. So suddenly, think about it. Think about this. You have now got the choice, right, to pick the top 10%, 5% of all those thousands of guys who are hitting you up. Okay. So right there, like you said, so now it's about aesthetics. They're not looking at, they don't need to, and by the way, they're looking at these guys who have got obviously the best looking guys, but also the profile. They've got the money, they've got the lifestyle. Okay. So now think about it. If you've got 1,000 guys hitting you up, and you're only seeing, say, for example, you know, you're looking at the top 50 guys out of the so really, you know, 950 of them are invisible. They're the average guy. So now, average looking man, that doesn't come into their radar anymore. And don't forget, as you quite rightly mentioned, you see, these women, they're fully, you know, full makeup on, over-sexualize themselves, images, the whole 9 yards. This is a recipe for disaster. And men are beginning to realize, average men, is they can't compete with those top 5% guys. Because if you haven't got a social media profile, you haven't got a 6-figure job, you haven't got the looks, basically you won't even be seen. To make it worse, the dating apps, the algorithms are skewed to exactly the same principle. If you're not the 5-10% of the good-looking guys with the profile, the algorithm will put your profile to the back of the queue. So already now you've got a skewing of society in terms of aesthetics, how much money that person's got, or purely from the point of view of, you know, how sexy and whatever else the woman is. This is a recipe for disaster. But what it's also left is the other 80% of the women who can't get the guys, and the guys who don't fit into that 5%. It's leaving them in the no man's land and causing all kinds of problems.
Yeah. You are making an assumption that a lot of men like the thirst trap ladies, though, Jimothy.
Oh, well, it's not so much that making the assumption. They won't be seen.
No. So I'm assuming you've heard the term incel.
I'm glad. I was going to talk about that, but I'm glad you brought it up. Yes. Yeah.
So an incel is an involuntary celibate. Essentially, it started in the gaming world, I think, and was predominantly male. But it's the idea that a person who is not successful with a member of the opposite sex or the same sex, depending on their proclivity, it is not the fault of them. It is not a personality issue. It is not that they're not attractive. It is an issue with the people that they are attracted to. They are a bigot. They can't look past the transphobia that they obviously have because I'm transsexual, or, you know, they obviously have an issue with men who don't earn $50,000. You know, so it's an outward way of looking at, there's nothing wrong with me. It's obviously something wrong with these people. And they can't see what a wonderful guy I am. You know, you hear it all the time. You know, okay. Good on you for kicking the nice guy to the curb, you bitch. It's a very projected, there's nothing wrong with me. I would have treated you like a queen or king. It's something wrong with you, and you're going to regret not choosing me. So it's an unfortunate thing, like you said, causing all sorts of problems. And the incel mentality is definitely one of it, because if you've got men who are constantly being shut down by these beautiful women, and they don't recognize that maybe they can't communicate well, maybe they're aggressive in their tone, maybe they come on too strong, maybe they don't have any interest in the girls just being polite. And that builds up. If that happens over 40 women that they're following on OnlyFans, they're going to see a problem with women, not that it's something they need to develop in themselves, and they can't take criticism. A lot of people, especially in dating, they can't take criticism, so they just don't have an identity out of their sexual identity, I guess, that they can fall back on and go, I'm actually okay the way I am. And I really loved, there's this guy I follow on Instagram, he's a carnivore, and he said he's going on this date, and he showed what he was taking to this picnic. And it was like a glass of, I don't know, a bottle of wine and some like beef jerky, and then a liver. Like he took a liver to this picnic, like a raw liver. And he goes, you know what? There is no way I am wasting time turning up to dates and not going, this is who I am. This is what I bring to the table. This is what I'm interested in. What about you? And having those authentic, this is the person I am. This is my identity. This is what I like. This is what I stand for. And we have just this huge problem with people who cannot stand for themselves and for what they believe in. So,
yeah, I mean, look, look, what you've just pointed out there is one of a myriad of different problems that have, if you like, that have evolved out of this gamification now, this progressive infiltration away from the traditional. You see, because in addition to all of that now, you've got a situation now where the average people like myself, yourself, whatever else, we're told, well, you've got to have an Instagram. Otherwise, an Instagram's like having a passport. If you're not, I mean, me personally, I make a point of, I'll meet people face to face. Literally, I'll tell them, no, I haven't got an Instagram. The thought of having a profile where it's all about me, having to put the ego out there, show, this is my lifestyle. I can't think of anything worse. But yet, that's the calling card now. That's the norm. So if women are saying, well, okay, we want these men in the top tier, because look, it's all about aesthetics and choice at the end of the day. Of course, you're going to go for, if you've got a choice of, which men to pick, whether it's on a dating app or via Instagram, you're going to go for the most attractive looking. Why wouldn't you?
I think you hit on something I want to circle back to a while ago. You mentioned that there's changes in 2022.
Right. And
you went down the route of, the 5%, and this is what they're looking for. I think there's different changes happening as well. And I don't know whether it's just because I follow a few different pages, but we are seeing a lot more people start to stand up, and I think COVID had a lot to do with it, where they're starting to go, no, you're not going to tell me how to think. You're not going to tell me what I can and can't say. You're not going to call me a conspiracy theorist or an anti-vaxxer or a transphobe. This is what I believe in, and I'm going to put it out there. Yeah, and it is definitely being seen as, genderphobic or transphobic or bigoted or racist, and it's not. The whole homophobic word came from a gay professor that wanted to label people who disagreed with his sexuality. And so he put out papers through his university saying that homophobia is the fear and the repression of homosexual inclinations being projected onto a homosexual person. And that took off. And transphobia is supposedly the fear of trans people. And it's developed into this ginormous label of people who don't go along with the trans agenda. And I'm not attacking trans people. I'm talking about the agenda as a whole, this whole gender dysphoria thing. But these men specifically, all of these comments that come out and say, no, I'm sorry, I would not date a trans person, and it's nothing personal. It just doesn't align with my values. And I think we need to go back to values-based dating.
Of course.
What is it that you're looking for in a relationship? Not so much the looks, but I value traditional gender roles.
We live in a world now where women are taught from a young age that acting like a man, being strong and independent, and having your own and 50-50 partnerships is what men want. It is not what men want. And as a matter of fact, the stats back it. We have the highest divorce rates we've ever had. We have the lowest marriage rates we've ever had. And 80% of divorces are initiated by women.
You also realize that there are also 90% of marriages are pushed on by women, not men.
Yeah.
So the women are the ones that
exactly.
I'm agreeing
and then
with
they
you.
initiate the divorce. What I'm trying to say is that we have clear-cut black and white data that shows that 50-50 partnerships don't work. We have clear-cut data that as women have become more liberated and by virtue become more masculine and become more, how do I say this, independent, marriages have suffered as a result, and we have more single women than ever before. And on top of that, we have the lowest approval ratings of life from women. As women have gotten more rights, they've been less and less happy. 1 in 4 women walks around doped up on antidepressant medication and anxiety medication.
Yep.
Because when you're not naturally feminine and you have this masculine energy, let me tell y'all something about men that you guys want. They have options. Why am I going to deal with this crass, annoying, rude, obnoxious, masculine woman that's trying to compete with me when I can go get a naturally submissive, attractive woman that's going to follow my lead? Women like this that don't know what the hell they're talking about, because her saying, I'm conditionally feminine is like me going up to you wearing a dress and heels saying, I'm conditionally masculine until I meet a girl that is feminine. That is a retarded concept, but we allow women to walk around with this backwards mindset, but men are never allowed to have this.
You know, I love that my husband's a provider. I love staying at home and being the one that turns up at the PNC meetings, and we've got this society that thinks, oh, you shouldn't have those roles. It should be equal in the kitchen, equal in the workplace, equal at home, equal child rearing, equal diaper changes. You know, there's no...
Look, you're obviously a very, very strong...
traditional.
Thank you. You're a strong traditional woman. You know, my subscribers absolutely love you when you come on. You know, fantastic, intelligent.
I'm seeing more people are wanting to go back to those.
To go back to those, right? Okay. Yeah, Why? You know? Why? When you've got strong, independent women fighting to be independent and strong, don't need a man. Why would you want to have a husband?
So I look at it as the OnlyFans conundrum. You've got all of these women.
Just out of interest, so sorry to cut in there. For my subscribers, can you? I know what it is, but can you explain what OnlyFans is, please?
Oh, OnlyFans is a subscription platform where people can monetize their body, is essentially what I see it as. It's not all porn. It's girls get on there and do gaming live streams. It's paying for companionship, but then when you turn the screens off, you're alone again. It's how I see OnlyFans.
Wow.
But it is. It's a monetization of the body. And, you know, so you've got these women who have been convinced that doing porn or participating in OnlyFans will get them so much male attention, but then they're still on antidepressants and they can't find, they said, no one will have me. You know, I can't find a man that's happy. And I think deep down, unless you're a very liberal man, you've got traditional values where you don't want your wife's ass on the internet for other men to see.
Well, it's actually quite funny because in addition to that, dare I say, you probably know this anyway, but the number of women also now, especially since COVID, moving into the sex industry as a viable source of income because, A, with OnlyFans, I can make a shitload of money and I can be independent from another man. My gosh, it sounds warped. You're not independent from a man because whether you work you're still relying on men. I mean, help me out here, Hannah. You know?
No, it's a very backwards logic, and we're starting to see, you know, we've touched on the tech stuff, but we're starting to see market saturation. And these women who are just, you know, they think I'm going to get on OnlyFans, I'm going to make all this money, I don't need a man. And they're competing against 68,000 other women that are doing the same thing. And there's only so many men that will pay to see your body on a regular basis or to feed your ego. So we've got this dense market saturation on Instagram even. You know, influencers don't have as much sway as they used to. People are more invested in learning. You know, I get a bit of a tickle out of someone I know that's on OnlyFans. I know it sounds petty, but I'm like, I have more followers and I have people that are interested in my brain, not what's on my chest. You know, that is a source of pride. And the people that follow me, they're getting something out of it. They're learning. They want to learn. They want to be engaged. They want to have something added to their lives. And I feel like the women who get on OnlyFans thinking that it's this way to independence, they're competing with other women. It's going to be so degrading to their self-esteem because they think, I look wonderful. What is wrong? Why, you know, and it's that incel thing
That's
as well.
An amazing
Why aren't you paying
point.
me money? Give me more subscriptions. Can you pay for my next tattoo? You know, it's not independence. It's a sugar daddy system.
Well, exactly right. But also, you did touch on it earlier. Look, as a man myself, would I get into a relationship with a woman who was OnlyFans? Do you know something? Whether I would or I wouldn't isn't so much the issue. The issue is the psychological effect it would have on me in a relationship down the line. Because, you see, newsflash, women, men, genetically, we're not built to have our women on display for all and sundry. We're not built to cope with that. No, our women were precious jewels. My gosh, whole countries, men would go out to war for their women, precious women. Men will go out to war for their queen. And so this phenomena that we've got in this generation, as Hannah said, there's OnlyFans where these women, you know, parading their bodies, but then expecting to have relationships down the line afterwards, and expecting that there wouldn't be psychological damage done to themselves or their prospective mates. Let alone women, Hannah, who are in the porn industry, for crying out loud. I can't remember which one there is. Is it Lana Del Rey or Lana something like that?
Yeah.
You know, she's look, I saw a really sad interview that she did where, you know, I think she's having a kid now anyway, but you know, she described how the regret that she had of some of the things she had to do and whatever else. But I'm thinking to myself, my gosh, you know, in years down the line, I mean, who knows, maybe our society will have evolved into not even caring, but oh gosh, the psychological damage.
Absolutely. And it's not just that way. It's not just men being jealous of their women seeking the attention of other men. It happens the other way. You know, women are very territorial. As much as they think we're very liberal, open relationships, this polyamory, this polygamy, you know, all of that. If we see our partners, you know, we can go, oh yeah, you're on OnlyFans, that's fine. But being on a platform where you're generating income from interest, you've got to maintain those relationships. So you're constantly going to be replying to direct messages and flirting, and it would be so psychologically hard for the partner of that person to sit there and go, why are you saying that? You know, and I think, and this is where I have a little bit of hope in the traditionalist mentality, that we don't have a generation of beta males. We're starting to see these alphas come out saying, no, I want the housewife, I want someone who wants the kids, and kind of busting out and going, I know I don't want a woman sitting there text messaging other men on her Instagram.
Hannah, that's not the case. The beta males are the ones who are coming out and saying, oh, no, it's her work, it's her business, and she's free. No, she's okay to do that. Honestly, I've come across so many. Yeah. And also because they think also, well, it makes them socially acceptable if as a man they're freely accepting their partners to be open in that way. Damn it.
And that's all online. You're seeing that a lot online. But like you said, if you're trying to build a relationship in real life, and once you've met that person and you've started building a relationship, we're starting to see people putting brakes down and saying, I think you should, you know, we're in a relationship now, I think you should get off. And I don't know, like I said, I look at things like Tinder resistance and libs of TikTok and the comments. I think that's what gives me hope. And some of them are horrendously transphobic or you know, masochistic or sadistic or all of this. There is it does generate some toxicity. But I'm starting to see men that go, no, sorry, I want a woman that can biologically have children. Right. And that should not be a contentious societal hateful issue.
Yes, exactly right. But okay, well, look, you know, this has been excellent, Hannah. I mean, here's the thing. There's much of this stuff I actually have difficulty talking about, to be honest. So people like yourself and Craig and Chris Shaw and even Xanthia, you've been fantastic, being able to sort of help me to unpack this. But so the question is, though, where is this going? So we touched on it earlier. Guys, all this is so that we can get to a point where, as men and women, we feel, well, it's absolutely hopeless being in relationships. But obviously, we need the stimulation. So thankfully, though, Meta is here to help us with that. Am I right or wrong?
A solution to a problem that should have never existed.
Absolutely. Okay. Now, here's the thing. So already now, in the virtual realm, you can imagine OnlyFans virtual realm style. My gosh. I mean, it would be shocking. But also, they're working on ways with which the body can be stimulated. And so, you know, with the mRNA vaccines or injections that are coming out now, basically, whereby you could, it's not a stretch to see that your cells could be digitized. Okay. And then they could download digital sexual impulses. So there wouldn't even, I mean, you talk about incels, there wouldn't be any need then. Why? You see, the thinking would be, why would I need to go through the hassle of trying to form a relationship when I could go down the virtual route? And
Or the sex doll.
Yes.
You know, that's where it started, was the removal of a real partner in favor of just something that met your needs.
So literally, we're now basically in the realm of transhumanism now, aren't we, Hannah, to be fair?
I genuinely believe that sex dolls was the start of the acceptance of people being okay with having relationships with robots, and that normalization of AI and normalization of artificial bodies and that type of thing serving humans a purpose. So it's a slow drip feed of normalization.
Look, we're getting, I don't know whether you've heard of these black pill sites. Black pill? Okay, so blue pill sites, or channels are, you know, the traditional model or the traditional view of relationships that have been pushed by, you know, YouTubers, whatever else. And then you've got the more contemporary red pill sites where people are beginning to understand that, well, hang on a second, you know, if you want to compete in a dating game, get yourself an Instagram, you know, start working out in the gym, you know, be a boss lady or be a boss man with your, you know, your $1 million, whatever else. And you will, but I know where you're going to go, and I want to.
I don't think you do. Keep going.
But you see, but then you've got the black pill sites where basically you've got people who are more focused on stats, are saying, listen, if you're not an 8 or a 9 out of 10, man or woman, forget it. Just give up. Just give up. You're not going to find a mate. You're not going to be viable, socially viable. So I tend to disagree with all three of them, but just to let people know that, look, this is all part of the gamification of our society, gaming us into the transhumanist agenda. But I gathered that you've got a slightly different angle.
How do you feel about the pushing of fat is healthy and fat is fit, and the fat obese models on the cover of Cosmopolitan and Clio and all of that type, you know, Women's Health and Ashley Graham and all these obese models coming out and being celebrated? How does that fit in with the size 8 and 10? Is that another example of social conditioning so that women think that men should accept them how they are? Or
absolutely, because what that is, again, is this another angle of the strong, independent woman. And by the way, you should accept us for who we are. None of this. Remember, of course, that this is a drastic departure away from a woman who's nurturing, a woman who's capable of looking after her husband and kids and a family. A drastic departure from someone like you, Hannah. Literally a drastic departure.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and this, you know, as you say, the plus sizes, whatever else, let's not, you know, look after our bodies. Let's, for whatever it is, you know, accept us for who we are. If you don't, you're a lesser human being. All right. You are surplus.
I think the solution to all of this, Jimothy, is a swing back to values-based dating.
100%.
We are so focused on the obese models fit the fetish ideals of men who are feeders. You know, that's a very generalized thing, but there are men who are genuinely sexually attracted to women.
Yes, for sure,
Of that size, who are not attracted to women of my size. That should not be offensive to me, or to anyone in society. It is, you know, we're so demonized over preferences, and it's, you know, people are getting offended saying, oh, you know, dating a black person shouldn't be a preference. You can't say that. And I'm like, well, I have a preference to not date women. That doesn't make me homophobic. I have a preference to date a man who has a full-time job and wants to be the provider of the family. And it's not because I want to be looked after and a kept woman. That is what I value. Right. So we have, I don't know, if I ask someone what their values are, I think there is a very small handful of people who could explain that to me. What do you value? What do you want in life? What do you think are important aspects of your life that you want to see reflected in your partner? You know, I want someone who, not so much I want a Christian man, I want a man who respects that I have a Christian faith and will work with me towards the values that I hold dear. And then I want a man, like I said, who is a provider. We've got the whole Instagram thing, appearance-based, and then trying really hard to be that top 10%. Right. And I don't know how we get around that, but values-based dating, first you have to figure out what your values are. Right. We're seeing that come through with the COVID. People are starting to value their health, value their bodily autonomy, value things that are more important than their jobs. But the 90% of people that got vaxxed, you know, I don't know whether many of them would actually be able to say what's more important than their job or what their partner looks like. So that's a very cultural thing as well. This is completely disregarding arranged marriages, but you see arranged marriages, they build trust and love based on we're working towards the
working
same
together,
to make this marriage work. We have to have children. We've got to get married. We've got to build up the family. We've got to create a legacy. You know,
well, I mean,
have those values.
Well, you know, like I said earlier, I mentioned one group that was not affected by these new social changes, and it was the Asians. I mean, my goodness me, look.
Because family is so important to them.
Traditional family values. You've got a woman who's nurturing. Basically, she's she looks after the home. She looks after the kids and generally the health and well-being of the family and the husband. He's the provider, the protector, and they're under no illusions that there's going to be hard times. There's going to be times of financial difficulty. There are going to be times when they don't. Exactly. There are going to be times when. Here's the key one. There's going to be times when you're not going to be as attracted to each other, but that is then replaced with a real deep love that comes from respect. It comes from working together, having shared experiences over a long period of time. So, you know, Hannah was asking, what's the solution? This is the solution, looking at these core values. Okay, where are you going to get that? Are you going to get that from some Instagram model? Are you going to get that from from Chad, who's on Instagram with his $1 million look? I mean, this is how the Tinder swindler got away with absolute carnage because of this false view, you know, that the transhumanist agenda wants to get us down.
Absolutely. And, you know, the whole redefined words and language. Right. You look at what the historical definition of discrimination is compared to what discrimination means now. The same thing has happened to values. Right. You know, what people find valuable or what should be considered as values of society. We don't seem to have them in Western society anymore. We don't have, you know, this is circling way back to earlier on in our conversation. We don't have a society that goes, we value this and this is what we are working towards as a big block. That we do have it for small groups of people. We are working on Indigenous rights. We are working on trans rights. We are working on this. But they've redefined values and they've demonized values as well, you know, especially Christian values.
Indeed.
We used to value chastity and virtue.
Indeed.
And, you know, I don't know, there's so many, I think I wrote them down, but now it's the opposite is perversion and degeneracy.
Well, I think
it's not only acceptable, it's celebrated.
Oh, I mean, look, the thing that shocked me of late was finding out that, for example, certainly in the dating game now, the thing that was most important to modern women when they first met someone is, well, the quality of the sex. If that isn't good, then there's not even a chance of a relationship. Get that right, and then we can start talking about a relationship. I mean, I was absolutely floored that's, you know, and Grant, look, of course, that's not everyone, but that certainly was the way things are moving. You know, women are quite happy. If I have sat through numerous, you know, shows and interviews with hosts who, for example, people like Kevin Samuels, who speak to thousands of women, you know, and the general consensus is, oh no, the quality of the sex first. If you haven't got that, then, you know, forgetting, of course, I mean, my gosh, that's something you can fix.
Oh, yeah. There's a whole reason why, you know, the abstinence of sex before marriage, you know, you abstained until marriage. It is much easier to train a man in how to have good sex than it is to train him how to be a good housekeeper, you know, or to have good values or to treat a woman right. If he doesn't, man, if he is a complete selfish narcissist, but the sex is good, you're going to have some explosive relationships. You know, I don't want a man that gaslights me, but he can give really, you know, you need someone. Personality is set. Sex is so versatile, you know, so this prioritization of sex, you're going to miss out on a good one.
Well, I mean, look, listen, look, for all, especially my new subscribers, you know, the younger generation who are watching this as well. Look, listen to her. I mean, this is, you don't hear this. You don't very, very rarely are you going to hear a woman tell you, my gosh, the sex aspect, you can fix that. My gosh, change your flipping diet or something. How about, improve sex just because over a period of time, you've got shared values, shared experiences, you know, you care about someone, not just sex because it's a sport. Do you know what I mean? You know, but again, as I say, this is part of that transhumanist agenda to get us to a point where we think, oh, this is totally hopeless. You know, I might as well go down the virtual reality route. Yeah. You know, roll on Meta.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, you know, we're not just seeing the change of meaning of consent. You know, consent seems to imply this whole, you know, I've prepared you and we're ready for sex and you're going to accept it and there's not going to be any consequences because we are both consenting adults. But consent is also consenting to the type of relationship that you want. And we are removing the right of people to choose. We don't have the ability to consent to this Marxist dogma that's coming in. We are losing our ability to say yes to our children being educated in transsexuality or transgenderism, or, you know, my son, he's 13 and I'm not even ready to have the conversation about some puberty issues, let alone someone grooming a 5-year-old about transgenderism. You know, it's this huge leap and it's pushing and pushing and pushing. And it's all Marxism. You know, I think you posed a question earlier, have we gone too far? It's getting there. If we continue to let them push on without our consent, and then if we say, no, I do not consent to this, we are labelled, we are bigots, we are interfering parents, we are lost in tradition, we are historically irrelevant. We've got no consent over how the next generation is being raised. And I do not consent to my child being raised in a world where he should go to Meta for all his sexual needs to be met.
Jeez.
So they are completely removing our consent in that regard as well. But consent in a way is so important. So I think the solution to stop this going too far is for us to plant our feet in the ground like we did with COVID and say, I will not comply. I will not let you. And we are going to get, I was even scared to do this interview when I saw the topics, Jennifer, because I thought, I am going to be labelled this, that, the other.
Listen, I've been scared to talk about this. I thought about this in December.
Yeah.
Literally, and for the whole month of December, I'm like, how am I going to do this? I thought, oh, I know, I'll bring on the guests and just blame it on them, basically. Do you know?
Yeah.
But, you know,
I feel like I'm going to have to defend myself, and I should not have to, because they need my consent to educate my child in that way, and I'm not going to give it. And I'm just going to stand in their way like I did with COVID narrative. I'm going to be loud, and I don't care what names you call me, because I'm not hateful. I'm not discriminatory. I'm not judgmental of other people, and I'm not one to tell someone that the way they're living their life is not right. They have to decide that on their own, but they can't decide it in a society that tells them there's nothing wrong with them at all.
Look, guys, I've brought us to the point now where, rather than sort of leaving you feeling like you should just jump off the next ledge, basically, look, Hanna talked about channels that she's come across where people are pushing back against that, because look, ultimately, it's the next generation that we've got to worry about. Mind you, I spoke to a gentleman from Melbourne earlier today who said, Jimothy, I really can't see the next 20 years. But assuming that we can, let's have a look at these channels that you were talking about, because I think we need to start promoting them as places, to at least have a look.
But you're not alone in your opinions.
Right, yes. So just give us a rundown of some of these places.
Oh gosh, the first one, a lot of them get removed because they're seen as hate comments and hate this and all against community guidelines, because you can't speak out against it. But one is, I think, punished Tinder resistance. There's libs of TikTok on Twitter and Instagram, and they highlight a lot of the childhood grooming issues that are happening, such as through Disney, and the images that children are getting subjected to, and parents are really starting to notice. Once you see it once, you can't unsee it.
Can't unsee it, yeah.
For example, there was a picture board out of Minnie and Mickey Mouse recently, this week, and when you see it, it's Mickey holding Minnie like this, and his hand is over her body, but her dress is shaped in a phallic symbol, so it looks like Mickey is holding this phallic symbol. So there's a lot of pages that are highlighting it, and a lot of people standing up and going, this is not okay. I am not okay with this. Biden saying that transgender children are made in the image of God. What God? Baphomet. Or it's starting to get so noticeable, and people are waking up. They're starting, like you said, the red pill, and then they hit the black. They just keep going down, and everything is connected into this. Just let everyone be whoever they want to be, and the state will provide it, and therefore they will rely on the state. So, it's everywhere. But libs of TikTok is a great one, especially when it comes to parenting. Punish Tinder resistance. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but once you start on one, the stories lead on to others, and you can see other people just standing up and saying, no, I'm sorry, I'm not a hateful person, but I don't agree with what you're telling me I should think.
Good stuff. Well, listen, guys, look, you see, as I say, the whole point of it is to move us down this very, very dark route. This is demonic. This is a spiritual attack against our Creator through us, by destroying us. And so, very much like with the COVID scamdemic, the infiltration of our water supplies, GMO foods, whatever else, you see, they're obvious attacks to a degree. Certainly they're obvious to us now. But guys, the attack on relationships, you've got to see now through the conversations I've had on this show and in previous shows, this is far more insidious because it's slow moving. It's been done over a period of time. It's socially conditioning. And as I said before, I really do believe that this is an extinction level situation, even before we've hit any pandemic. This, because ultimately what is happening is that humanity, we're being conditioned away from our initial purpose, what it means to be men and women. And Hanna said, you know, taking the verbiage out, taking the, we're developing an appetite away from each other. This is what's happening. And the technology is now being set up so that we can take a nosedive into this virtual realm. Let me spell it out what the implications are spiritually. Essentially, we've departed from God's intentions for us, God's laws with regards to marriage, men and women, husband and wife coming together. The family is in fact a replica, if you like, of the relationship between Jesus and the body on earth. So by destroying the family, the enemy is essentially destroying or attacking God's purpose. So now, so to do that, basically, we're committing sin on levels way, way above. I mean, sexual relationships before marriage, that's a sin that you really do need to cleanse yourself from. But they say, when you read the Bible, and Hanna can back me up, when you read the Bible, sin isn't just an action, it's the thought in your mind. So then you hook up metaverse, right? Hook yourself into the metaverse where essentially your wildest fantasies you can live out. Imagine that. You'll literally be living in sin. We're talking about being eternally damned and condemned. But you see, they're not going to tell you that. So this is how dangerous this is. Okay? So I'm going to leave Hanna with the last word on this.
We're just heading, like First Timothy is, they will become lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. And, this whole artificial life and artificial intelligence and technology, it's heading towards a place where you need permission to be a parent. You need the approval of the state to be able to multiply, because if this depopulation agenda taught us anything, it's going after fertility in the heterosexual couples. And gay couples need approval to go through IVF and surrogacy and all of that kind of thing. So it will be an industrialized birth complex, I think, is where we're heading with that. And therefore the reclassification of language continues. What is a mother? What is a father? You look at it now, and do children have a mother and father? No, I've got two dads. Well, no, you still have a mother. You have a woman who provided an egg. She is a mother. No, she's not. No, she's irrelevant. Wow. So if we've got this, parent one and parent two is where we're headed. Hillary Clinton tried to bring it in, and they pushed back and they said no. And the forms came and said mother or parent one and father or parent two. So this removal of the word mother and father and this approval required for you to procreate, these children born in a lab, what soul do they have if they weren't the coming together of a man and a woman? And therefore, what weight does the word our Father in heaven have? Well, Father doesn't exist. Father's not a concept anymore. You've removed this whole word from the, and Brave New World, Professor Mond says it. He goes, it's disgusting, this father and mother and this maternal bond and this family unit. It's disgusting, is how they see it. But the biblical ramifications of not knowing what father and what a father's love and what a father can provide to the family is so just shattering. As a Christian, it shouldn't happen. So that's my last words. I think woe is to those who call good evil and evil good. That's where we're heading. We're looking at all of these these bad proclivities such as promiscuity and prostitution and all that is becoming so normalized, and Christian traditional values are becoming demonized, and we're seeing that dynamic flip. So it's not looking too good, Jimothy, but if enough of us stick our feet in the ground and get the fish and put out the fish and say, this is who I am, then we might have a chance.
And I think that's the way it's got to be, guys. We are the ones, I suppose, those that are out in the wilderness. So, look, as Hanna said earlier, once you understand this, you make the decision to push back against it. Look, I'm still a single man. I prefer to meet people face to face, not via a digital app or whatever online. I won't have it. I'll meet people face to face. I tell you what, I'll create richer, far better relationships with people. It's been fantastic. I've spent the last 3-4 months doing that, introducing myself to new people, new groups of people, and so on and so forth. It's been fantastic. Yes, I meet people who are like, oh, what's your Instagram? Oh, you haven't got a profile. And, those people are not important to me. Okay. I sort of move them along very, very quickly, or try to get them to see that, look, I'm able to exist despite not having a digital identification or whatever else, because guess what? Humanity existed quite well without that, So there's something for you to consider, folks. I think we've got one more chat with an interesting gentleman who's got an interesting YouTube where he talks about this, but from a Black perspective. And that he very much like Hanna, he went into the histrionics of how the Black race was divided such that we get to the point where Black women and Black men are literally at odds with each other now. And to try and show that, well, look, this is all by design. And so with us all now, if you like, joining all the dots together and seeing, okay, the transhumanist agenda is where we're heading, then we can all come to the same conclusion that we've come to with Hanna, which is, okay, dig our heels in and say, we're going back to the traditional model. Because literally, reality is the content of a person's character, the traditional values of, nurturing homes, love and respect, commitment, regardless of the odds, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and health. Those things, they allowed humanity to last for thousands of years. And think about it, the changes that Hanna mentioned from I believe it was 50s, 60s onwards, literally in 5-6 generations, they have sent us down a road where we are looking at destruction of the human race such that we would never come back from. Just imagine that, just in 50, 60 years. That's all it's taken. But we can turn it around. Okay, guys. Hanna, thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Jim. It's been a pleasure. Sorry.
All good. And guys, listen, take care. Look after yourselves, and I will see you in the next episode. Goodbye.
They're on Tinder and they're uploading those hideous videos to TikTok. That dopamine feed that comes from a guy liking it, hitting them up on their DMs, that to them is building relationships. Because they're being told OnlyFans will bring them all the male attention they need. It's a monetization of the body.